Rise Up, O Flame. We will sing it one time through together, and then 2 times as a round. This side will go first, followed by this side.
Rise Good morning, everyone, and a hearty welcome to you on this frigid morning. Not only the next to darkest day of the year, but the coldest yet here in the Champlain Valley. Thank goodness, though, for that 10 inches of white fluffy stuff to give us a winter wonderland, right? Yeah. I think snow can be a very divisive issue, but apparently we have some positive feelings in this crew. Welcome to you, hearty souls, in the sanctuary today, and also to you who are toasty at home watching on Zoom. Whatever your beliefs, your origins, your way of being, you are welcome here. We are a strong and caring community, committed both to nurturing our own spiritual well-being and to working together in the larger community to build a better world. If you are new to us today, I invite you to fill out a blue card in the lobby on the table straight out the door so that we might get to know each other better. We gather today on land known as Ndakina, to the Nulhegan Abenaki tribe. In winter, they gathered around Brother Fire and told stories to sustain the community during times of darkness. May we gather around this fire of respect and pledge to not add to their darkness. My name is Abi Sessions. I am a member of the worship team, and today I'm honored to serve as Worship Associate for our co-interim minister, Tricia Hart. Please join me in the chalice lighting as Claire Tessier, she said that was the preferred pronunciation, but she'll also answer to Claire Tessier, who is about to become our newest member in the near future. Words? We're so high-tech around here. Please join me in reciting the words to the chalice lighting. We are Unitarian Universalists who put love at the center of our life. We light this chalice today as a reminder to slow down and notice the gifts already given.
Thank you, Abby. Hi to everybody who's toasty and warm at home. We love you. The call to worship, the opening words this morning are from the work of Kent Nerburn, who's a Minnesota writer. Ooh, Minnesota. I said it the right way. I have children, I have family who live in Minnesota, so I'm studying. Yes. He's a writer, and he's spent much of his career in close contact and collaboration with some of the native peoples in that part of the country. He called this a single flame. We are not saints. We are not heroes. Our lives are lived in the quiet corners of the ordinary. We build tiny hearth fires, sometimes barely strong enough to give off warmth. But to the person lost in the darkness, our tiny flame might be the road to safety, the path to salvation. It is not given us to know who is lost in the darkness that surrounds us, or even if our light is seen. We can only know that against even the smallest of lights, darkness cannot stand. There are children here at CVUUS this morning. They're just not in this room with us. They are in Fenn House with Poppy doing fun things, and I think kind of sort of getting ready for Christmas Eve and the pageant. Okay, here's a quiz. I like this. When is the all ages anybody can come no rehearsal Christmas pageant? On what day? 4 p.m. on? Right. I had a funny conversation with my husband yesterday where I said, he was talking about Christmas Eve being on Wednesday. I said, it's Tuesday. And he had to, gets confusing for us. So we're not having a time for all ages, but I wanted to do something that we could call a story for all ages. There is a remarkable resource of materials for putting worship together for all ages that CVUUS is now subscribing to. It's called Soul Matters. And when I'm looking for ideas that I wouldn't already know about, I tend to look in the religious education parts of Soul Matters. And I found this piece that I'm going to read to you that will sound familiar and not in that collection this month. 'Twas the night before Yuletide. 'Twas the night before Yuletide, and all through the glen not a creature was stirring, not a fox, not a hen. A mantle of snow shone brightly that night as it lay on the ground, reflecting moonlight. The fairies were nestled all snug in their trees, unmindful of flurries and a chilly north breeze. The elves and the gnomes were down in their burrows, sleeping like babes in their soft earthen furrows. When lo, the earth moved with a thunderous quake, causing chairs to fall over and dishes to break. The little folk scrambled to get onto their feet, then raced to the river where they usually meet. What happened, they wondered, they questioned, they probed, as they shivered in night clothes, some bare-armed, some robed. What caused the earth's shudder? What caused her to shiver? They all spoke at once as they stood by the river. Then what to their wondering eyes should appear but a shining gold light in the shape of a sphere? It blinked and it twinkled, it winked like an eye, then it flew straight up and was lost in the sky. Before they could murmur, before they could bustle, there emerged from the crowd with a swish and a rustle, a stately old crone with her hand on a cane. This is where you have to imagine that I have some wonderful headdress on, okay? With her hand on a cane, resplendent in green with a flowing white mane. And all you have to do is imagine Christina's hair at this moment. As she passed by them, the old crone's perfume, smelling of meadows and flowers abloom, made each of the fey folk think of the spring when the earth wakes from slumber and the birds start to sing. My name is Gaia, the old crone proclaimed in a voice that was at once both wild and tamed. I've come to remind you, for you seem to forget, that Yule is the time of rebirth, and yet I see no hearth fires, hear no music, no bells. The air isn't filled with rich, fragrant smells of baking and toasting and roasting and stews of cider that's mulled or other hot brews. There aren't any children at play in the snow or houses lit up by candles' glow. Have you forgotten, my children, the fun of celebrating the rebirth of the sun? She looked at the wee folk, her eyes going round as they shuffled their feet and stared at the ground. Then she smiled the smile that brings light to the day. Come, my children, she said, let's play. They gathered the mistletoe, gathered the holly, threw off the drab and drew on the jolly. They lit a big bonfire and they danced and they sang. They brought out the bells and clapped when they rang. They strung lights on the trees and bows, oh so merry, in colors of cranberry, bayberry, cherry. They built giant snowmen and adorned them with hats. They surrounded them with snowbirds and snow cats and bats. Then just before dawn, at the end of their fest, before they went homeward to seek out their rest, the fey folk, they gathered round their favorite oak tree and welcomed the sun 'neath the tree's finery. They were just reaching home when it suddenly came. The gold light returned like an arrow-shot flame. It lit on the treetop where they could see from afar the golden-like sphere turned into a star. The old crone just smiled at the beautiful sight. "Happy Yuletide, my children," she whispered. "Good night." And I would invite all of us to sing one more time together. This is a song called Dark of Winter, and it is in your gray hymnal, number 55, if you want to see the beautiful harmonies. This is a relatively new, I'm displaying my age here, a relatively new song that I think is just a beautiful balance to some of the Christmas carol-y things that we sing at this time of year and say that we're honoring solstice. This actually does. Dark of Winter. Please rise in body or spirit.
I'm going to stand on the stool. There are many pathways to connection in our congregation, ways that we work and play together outside of our Sunday morning gatherings. You'll notice on your order of service, or you may have noticed, that the back is this week blank. I don't think that's the new tradition. I think that's just probably a copier error at the office. So I'll just highlight a few that were meant to be on there. That CVUU office in the Fenn House will be closed from December 25th to January 2nd. Holiday services, you already know when the all ages no rehearsal pageant will be. Now, who can show me with two hands what time the carols, lessons, and peaceful candle lighting service will be? Two hands. Not 10, Steve. No, not 10. 7 o'clock. You come at 10, it'll be kind of dark around here, I think. And then on the 29th, Sunday the 29th, we will have a service called Daily Presence for the New Year, which will be really fun because Liam is leading it, and it's always fun when Liam leads it. And before the 10 o'clock service on Sunday, there'll be pickup choir here at 9 o'clock, which will also be fun. So there's just no end of fun after Christmas around here. From January 1st to the 4th, the Breadloaf Mountain Zen community will be holding their silent retreat downstairs in the fellowship hall. So that's, we need to respect their use of the fellowship hall and give them the space and quiet to do their silent retreat from the 1st to the 4th. So no parties upstairs from the 1st to the 4th. We'll now take our offering, which will benefit the Charterhouse Coalition. As you get ready to stand up and sing the song that we always sing at the end of the offering, I want to just encourage you today to say hi with your eyes to somebody that you know and also to somebody you don't. I know you can do that. Let's share this song. Too much trouble. We have 2 milestones and passages today. First, happy news from Jean Terwilliger. She says, our daughter, Maddie Kincaid, got married on Monday to her partner of 3 years, Danny Ben David. Party to follow in Boston next summer. We attended the ceremony at City Hall in Somerville and appreciated the clerk's very you approach to the ceremony. Congratulations. That's great. And from Rosalie, a request. Friends, I need a ride home to Bristol town after Christmas Eve service. If you could help without too much effort, I'd be grateful, says Rosalie. Rosalie, maybe you could raise your hand up and people can see you after the service if they would enjoy the privilege of taking you home.
It is such an honor to work with Abby, with all of the Worship Associates. We just haven't figured out the evening up the height of the two people. So we're fine. Some of you might have seen this meditation. I would invite all of us to settle in your nice comfy chair at home as well for a few moments of contemplation, first in words and then in shared silence. Some of you may have seen this piece that's been floating around social media in the last few days, written by Margaret Atwood. This is the solstice, the still point of the sun, its cusp at midnight, the year's threshold and unlocking, where the past lets go of and becomes the future. The place of caught breath, the door of a vanished house left ajar. Let us be quiet together for a moment.
This is Winter Solstice by Rebecca Parker. Perhaps for a moment, the typewriters will stop clicking. The wheels stop rolling. The computers desist from computing. And a hush will fall over the city. For an instant, in the stillness, The chiming of the celestial spheres will be heard as Earth hangs poised in the crystalline darkness and then gracefully tilts. Let there be a season when holiness is heard and the splendor of living is revealed. Stunned to silence by beauty, we remember who we are and why we are here. There are inexplicable mysteries. We are not alone. In the universe there moves a wild one whose gestures alter Earth's axis toward love. In the immense darkness, everything spins with joy. The cosmos enfolds us. We are caught in a web of stars, cradled in a swaying embrace, rocked by the holy night, babes of the universe. Let this be the time we wake to life, like spring wakes in the moment of winter solstice.
During my first 5 semesters in seminary, over the better part of 2.5 years, I lived in Maine and was enrolled in seminary in Massachusetts. I was having a great time studying for the ministry. I was doing something that I had only dreamed about for years. But my days and weeks in those times were, shall we say, overfull. Studying and work and family all demanded my attention. As I was putting this together, I had to do the arithmetic and figure out how old my 3 children were when I first began seminary. They were 8 and 10 and 14. And I had just enrolled in a 90-credit degree program that takes an undetermined number of years. I'm not kidding. For those of us going part-time. I was always running short of hours in a day, short of days in a week, weeks in the semester, short of energy, short of sleep, and especially of attention. Right in the middle of my elaborately segmented schedule, I would forget things and be suddenly distracted and would need to pause for a moment to remember where I was and what, in fact, I was doing. Now, you just need to set your Wayback Machine and recognize that this was in the mid-1990s. So long before the time of Zoom or Google Meet or FaceTime, and early in the days of cell phones. My father was, my parents lived a long way away in North Carolina, and my father was sort of horrified that I was doing all of this traveling by myself, including in weather like today's, and so he bought me a car phone. Remember car phones? Like had a suitcase, and yes, it was daunting, but it made, I think, both of us, my dad and me, feel better that it was in the car. My drive was 3 hours long one way, unless, of course, there was a traffic jam or a snowstorm, which there was every single week of my first semester, as I recall. So, amid this organized chaos, one thing that I never lost track of was the season of the year. My seminary week, my classes began most often on Tuesday with a 9 a.m. class. I lived in Yarmouth, Maine, my class was in Newton Center, Massachusetts. So my goal was on those Tuesdays to be on the road by 5:30 in order to accommodate whatever mischief Route 128 might have in store when I got there. It was that trip that reoriented me every week to where we were in the yearly cycle. In September, taking that drive, somewhere in the first 45 minutes, I was treated often to a magnificent sunrise that would sparkle the mists that hovered over the rivers that I crossed. There are quite a few rivers that one crosses. And then in April, before we set the clocks ahead, okay, so that some of you are thinking, wait, we set the clocks forward in March now, but I am so old we didn't do it until April then. So in those April days, the sun was fully risen even before I got up. And the world was wide awake and humming with life as I drove south. December, though, was another story. It wasn't the sun, it was the stars that filled the sky on those early mornings. I left in full darkness amid a deep quiet. The days seemed to resist beginning in those last weeks as winter was just arriving. And the sun wasn't up until I had crossed the Massachusetts line. I was reminded of this morning as I turned onto Route 2 east from my house in Williston, and it wasn't clear, but it wasn't thick clouds, and there was sort of ahead of me this big, round, kind of lit up thing, which was the sun. It was right there, just barely above the tops of the houses across the street. But anyway, in December, that was the time of year for several years when I most questioned the sanity of what I was doing. The cold, dark, beautiful world seemed to be telling me that I ought to be home in bed. I have very mixed reactions to this time of year. I miss autumn, and I miss the warm days, even the cool days, when the sun still has enough strength to help you work up a sweat and you're taking a hike or raking leaves. And I miss the light as it fades, appearing later every morning and beginning to disappear so early in the afternoons. It's hard to get out of bed before the sun, at least for me. And it's odd, even long after my children have stopped taking the school bus, to see school buses on their afternoon rounds coming home almost as darkness is closing in. I swear it starts at 2. Do you agree with me? Oh, and I checked, just in case you want to know. Today, the day after solstice, the sunlight will last 1 second longer than it did yesterday. It starts speeding up pretty soon, but we've got 1 second today. And then, in other ways, I'm really glad for this time of short days and long nights. I know that some of my appreciation for December comes from a love of Christmas. I am a sucker for Christmas music and church fairs and twinkling lights, and I've always been very fond of presents. But I think that my respect for this time of year is more than that. Living in the darkness, which we get to do at this part of the world. Living in the darkness is somehow important, full of messages that I need to pay attention to, as much as I need to notice new life as it appears in the spring. Perhaps especially because in December I'm so busy, I'm so much out in the world, I need reminders about how necessary it is to stop, to be still, to sleep. So have you noticed, I'm sure you have, but think about it for a second, how darkness changes everything? We talk a lot in images about the effects of light, which in an instant can make everything that is hidden visible, or so it seems, just as flipping on a light switch illuminates a room with all its treasures and its obstacles. Inspiration clarity, understanding, decision. Those are words that are associated with light. She saw the light. It was as clear as day. Or, my husband Peter's favorite, dawn breaks over marble head. That is a joke, but maybe you have to be from Massachusetts. Maybe you have to be from Massachusetts to get it. Anyway, I'll explain it to you later. Light gets our attention, and it shows us the way to go sometimes. But darkness focuses our attention too. Think about what it's like when the power goes out at night. Suddenly lamps and streetlights and televisions and computers are gone, are silent. Well, of course, maybe not completely, depending on the age and the status of your computer battery. It also reveals my age, that I remember times of losing power, sitting there in the sudden dark with like a book or a newspaper still in my hand. And it's quiet. For a moment, all the motors of our machines are stilled, and light gives us room to move, so we do noisily, and darkness requires us to stop where we are and move carefully and turn control over from our eyes to our ears and our nose and our touch. Perhaps those of us who are sighted are not accustomed to depending on those other senses. So we need more time and less noise and distraction to live in the dark. Darkness can be terrifying and frustrating and dangerous. It can be restful and gentle and peaceful, not just for sleeping, but for a deeper kind of being awake. My favorite place to be in the dark is a cottage off the coast of Maine, where I used to spend time almost every summer and sometimes in the fall. The power goes out there frequently, at least it used to. And maybe because that island is a place where at least some residents want to take life a little easy anyway, it doesn't seem to matter as much. Having the power go out after dark is a little like waking up on a very snowy day. Everything changes, because if you're lucky, you can't do anything. No TV, no radio, no work on the computer to save that battery. No cleaning. I think it's very hard to clean well when you can't see, don't you think? And there's really not enough light to do the dishes. And it's much better to keep the refrigerator door closed to save the power. You could read, but candlelight is a bit wavery, and why should one person get a whole candle to herself? So there you are, suddenly floating in a sea of time and space, with all the permission you need to put another log on the fire, or listen to the wind howl, which on the coast of Maine, it does sometimes, to construct some contraption to boil water for tea. I think I did this once in the fireplace, which doesn't work very well. Or to pop popcorn, if you've still got your grandfather's popper. How many of you are old enough, like I am, to remember that grill thing? Yeah? Do you still use it? Okay. But it probably would work if we tried. So the world contracts to one small end of the room, where everything important is close at hand, including a blanket to snuggle up in, and maybe even a grandparent to tell the same stories that you've heard 36 times before. And when you need to fetch more firewood from the porch, you get to be amazed again at how much light the ocean seems to hold, and at how many sounds you can hear. Sometimes the absence of light changes everything for those of us who are sighted. It focuses our attention, as does any unanticipated change or loss, an illness that lays you low for a few days or weeks, the loss of a job, the shocking news that a friend has died. In those moments, we just must stop. There's no possibility of continuing as if nothing has happened. And we're forced to pay attention in a whole different way. As dark as it is, as dark as it can be, if we look closely, there are treasures to be found. I think that the natural world conspires to teach us these lessons that we are too good at forgetting. And we small, fragile humans have been creating rituals and celebrations to teach one another these truths for as long as there have been gatherings of people and darkness and fire. You may have heard the story that the young Martin Luther, when he was growing up in Germany, went into the dark forest in December and was afraid. And he looked up and was comforted by the presence of the stars. So the way the story gets told, he decided to dig up a small tree and bring it inside and string it with lights. That was Martin Luther. We don't often think kind and friendly things about him, at least some of us. But he's the one who thought, we can bring a tree inside the house and put lights on it. And before that, probably a long time before that, there was also a legend in Germany of a single tree in the middle of a dark forest that, especially around Christmas, was glowing with light magically. Sometimes, if you looked carefully, you could see a beautiful child sitting in its branches. In the cultures of the indigenous people of this area, apparently, winter solstice was a time to reflect on the past year, to let go of emotional noise, to make space for renewal and hope and forgiveness. Strikes me as something that all of us might do. That reading that Abby read by Rebecca Parker called Winter Solstice, I first read it a few years before I went to seminary. I was actually visiting my, at that point, in-laws who were living at that point in the Caribbean. And it's a little hard to celebrate Christmas, or if you're used to New England, it's a little hard to figure out how to celebrate solstice and Christmas in that beautiful part of the world where the days and nights are almost the same length. But my mother-in-law, who always insisted that she was a seventh-generation Unitarian, subscribed to Quest, the publication that the Church of the Larger Fellowship puts out. And she was involved in creating worship for that small congregation that met on that island in the Caribbean. And so that poem was sitting out in my mother-in-law's house. And I saw it, and I thought, maybe what I think I know about this time of year is only a part of the story. Maybe there's a larger context in which Christmas Eve, Hanukkah as we celebrate it, all of the festivals of this darkening season, a larger context in which we all participate. And maybe we can learn about it and even decide to live it ourselves. That time of the world suddenly tilting, as Rebecca Parker says, from the dark we've been moving into. We're still here, but we are beginning to move out. And we can notice those times, and we can share them with each other, and we can remember that we too are reborn. I'm deeply, deeply grateful to Unitarian Universalism that in my life helped me understand so much of what is possible that I had not known before. And now the choir will sing another solstice song. As I extinguish the chalice, will you say the words with me? Okay, well, I have forgotten to put the words that Wendell Berry wrote into my computer. So I don't remember what they are. I do remember the last line. It's a very short piece, and he talks about being still and thankful, and he says, all we need is here. Perhaps those are good enough for our closing words today. And don't run off, because the postlude's pretty special too.
Deep down in the belly of the night, dream deep winter dreams, lie safe in your grandmother's arms, still as a seed, still as a seed. Deep down in the belly of the night.